Welcome back to Becky, Amio Horse Training, and we are 10 days post my freak accident I had a couple Fridays ago. Not doing too bad. Still have a pretty good black eye. You know, none of that was involved. It was all this cheekbone here. I still have a pretty good bump there. That's pretty painful. And the bruising is running down the side of my face, down into my jaw. But otherwise, you know, my head feels like it's back. Very few headaches, if any. And I'm able to concentrate. I don't get nauseous. So coming around pretty good. So I decided, in lieu of my accident that I had, let's talk about tack and equipment and the tools that I'm using when I'm working with these colts, and mainly when I'm doing this hand walking that I've been talking about and kind of been stuck on for the last few videos. So if you want to see more about that and a detailed description and, you know, how I use these different halters and lead ropes, stick around. You don't want to miss this video. So if every time we handle our horse, we are training on it, we want to make sure we're using the proper tools for the job. I liken a good halter to wearing your seatbelt in your vehicle. You never know when you're going to need it, okay? And there are a million different kinds of halters on the market, right? You can go online, type in halter, and every single catalog is going to have one. Every single person on Etsy is selling them. Some guy is breeding mule tape halters. You know, XYZ has the latest, greatest, best halter. Every clinician has their own halter. So I encourage you to find what works for you and your particular situation. Now, I am mainly handling 2-year-olds, right? However, we also handle weanlings, we handle yearlings, we handle great big studs here. I still have a barrel horse who is mature 5-year-old. You know, all of those head sizes and shapes are different. So let's start with my basic 2-year-old halter, okay? Now, the halters that I have made, they're all a custom deal. They're made by Keitha, Handcrafted Jewels, Rope Horse Tack. She's in Roundup, Montana. I found her back in 2011-ish. And she's been making halters for me ever since. She has sent me some stuff and said, hey, try this, tell me how you like it. And either it's a go or it's a no, and most time it's a go. I don't know where she gets some of these ideas. You know, she handles her own horses herself, and so she knows the feel that she likes. And she sends stuff to me and says, here, try it and see how you like the feel. She sent me this 3/16 stiff rope halter probably back in 2017, 18 or so, and I immediately fell in love with it. That's a 3/16 inch stiff rope, and you got nose knots here. So the nose stays open, you see that? And this is a 2-year-old size, so it fits the horse's head really nice. It's very attractive on the head, and that matters to me because, for one, I take a lot of pictures of these horses because we're selling them. For two, if you are selling your horse to a true horseman, they're going to look at that horse's head. And if you have a halter on that head that makes that head look like garbage, you can forget you've lost your sale right there. I have clients who have flat told me that when they go to sell a horse, they've had people say, when that horse walks up to you, it might as well have a pretty head. And if you put a halter on that horse's head that makes that head look like a garbage can, you might as well forget the sale anyway. So for one, I like how nicely Keitha's halters fit my horse's heads. For two, this stiff rope here, you can't beat it for feel. I mean, the feel on this, I barely have to touch that lead to get their attention. And then if somebody is naughty and wants to act up with me, I can really wake them up and get their attention. There is no need for a stud chain with this halter. This is something similar to what Clint Anderson's selling, but I think his is a bigger diameter. I'll get to one of those halters in just a short second, but this is my main 2-year-old halter that I'm using. Okay, so this is another 2-year-old halter, but it also works on a couple of my smaller 3-year-olds. And this is a 1/2 inch diameter. So this is just a little bit thicker rope. You still get the same stiff, and you get the nose knots. These nose knots, again, will really wake them up. This is a little bit stouter rope. So if you have somebody that's sitting back, you don't have to worry about this rope breaking on you for sure. With this, 2-year-olds aren't strong enough to break this. But what I find is if I do have, some 15 2-hand, 1,300 pound something or other that has a small enough head to fit in this guy, he might break it, okay? So I go with a little bit stouter thickness. Hopefully you can see the difference in the thickness on those two. Here is another one of that thickness. This one fits a 4-year-old stud here. Again, 1/2 inch thickness, stiff halter, okay? And again, just a couple little nose knots. They're pretty discreet. And she's happy to make them the same color as the halter. And then it's shaped really nice to their head. It's very fitted. I've got it if I need it. If I don't need it, I don't need to use it. Does that make sense? I hope I'm conveying that. I really don't have any use for a stud chain. They're a little too cumbersome to put on, because once you got a halter on somebody, if you got something that wants to move around a bunch or is just weird about their head at first, dealing with a stud chain is a pain in the butt. You can only use it on one side unless you wrap it a certain way, and then you gotta have all of the rings to wrap it through. It just gets to be a puzzle to me, and it doesn't photograph well. You know what I'm saying? So here's an example of one of our little yearling size. So you still have the stiffness and you have the nose knots. Now here's another yearling halter that I had made, no nose knots. If you have something that is so sensitive that doesn't need nose knots, you go with this. You still have some feel because you have a nice stiff halter, but you don't have any knots there. This halter is also really, really good for halter breaking, because you have this, because of the stiffness, you have this opening here already that's kind of naturally wants to stay open. Where I have another guy here, this is a 3/16 also, but it's the soft rope. Look at how that one hangs compared to how this one hangs. Now, if you're halter breaking and you're getting a halter on something for the first time, it's kind of difficult. It's a challenge to get those halters on those babies. Now, we use a chute, and you're kind of over them in a chute trying to get that halter on them. And if you're fighting with trying to get that nose open, that just makes your job that much more difficult. But by all means, if you've got a really gentle baby and you can get this halter on them, by all means, go for it. And I like if you have something that has to wear a halter full time, like they're just difficult to catch and hard to get to, and they just need to live in it for a little while, go with the soft one. No nose knots. And these are also great if you want to tie, like teach them how to tie the first time, because this soft rope is not going to tear up their face nearly as bad as, say, the stiff rope will, okay? So all these different applications for halters, and every single horse is different when I evaluate them and what their special needs are going to be before we eventually move up to, just a standard basic, like a standard basic one like this guy right here. This is what, that 4-year-old stud just wears all the time, and I don't need it, but it's there if, for whatever reason, I need to use it. So here's another one. This is a 2-year-old soft rope. Again, this is, sometimes we don't get these colts halter broke until they're 2. So this might be the first halter that they wear because they're starting to get halter broke, and we don't want to tear up their face. So soft rope, and then of course sometimes they might have to live in them. And Not that we ever recommend having a horse live in a halter because of all the different possibilities of how they could kill themselves. You know, I'm not saying that, but sometimes you do have to leave stuff on them to get them caught and leave a little lead on them. Or, you know, supervised, you leave this on them, you leave some lead on them, let them step on their own lead rope for a little while, and, you know, then they learn how to give to pressure all on their own. So just different things, you know, how whatever works for you in your particular situation. I just wanted to show you guys some of the different tools that I'm using in the application. You know, and all that being said, I don't want to sound like I'm not fun either. You know, I do enjoy putting on a fancy halter on my mare and going and taking pictures of her, you know, something like leather with a nameplate on it and whatnot. But like even when I haul, whether I'm hauling to a barrel race or hauling over to the local barn, when I unload that horse off the trailer, you know, sometimes they're a little animated. You know, the reason they're being hauled is because they need to be seasoned. And sometimes they get off that trailer and they are very challenged by the situation, and you need to have a little semblance of control over them when you get them off the trailer. Because if you get off the trailer in a flat nylon halter and they've got their head up in the air like a goose and they're checking everything out, you know, you don't have their attention at all, and you need something that's going to make them aware that you're even there, okay? So I'm not opposed to having a good time. If you've ever seen me barrel race, I go crazy with color. I enjoy tassels on my reins and matchy with my horse and everything. So like I do some wild stuff, you know. This is just a fun one I did to match a saddle pad that I had. But here again, I still have some nose knots there. You know, I got a little nose pressure there. And this is that 3/16 rope on it. Now, if I were to do this halter again, I'd probably do it in the 1/2-inch rope, you know, just to have something a little bit stouter to stand them at the trailer. Because if they're going to sit back and lose their cool and break away, they're going to do it at the trailer, at a barrel race. They're going to take everybody off the trailer with them and go running around the fairgrounds. You know, that's just the way it is. Same thing with this halter. This is my Good Mare's halter. Again, we got some nose knots here. You know, some fun little buttons on the side. But I got a little bite when I get her off the trailer. She's a little animated. She's fed up because we're going to a rodeo. I got to have something to have a handle on her, okay? Now, all of that to say that you cannot beat a good lead rope, okay? Now, Keitha sent this lead rope to me by accident. I mean, it was the dumbest thing. I had called her and I said, I need a rope so I can do that Chris Cox stuff in the round pen. You know, not quite a lunge line, but I need something to do that, you know, crouching tiger, hidden dragon stuff in the round pen. I mean, for reals, like, you know, sending them back and forth. And this was 11 years ago that I called her and asked her for this. And she sent this to me, and it wasn't the thickness that the rope that I'd been using. And I was like, wow, it's not the thickness of that rope. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll send you a new one out. She sent me a new one, and it's attached to one of these soft halters, so it works great for halter breaking. But this has been my go-to rope for the past 11 years. It's 16 foot long. I think it's a 9/16 inch, okay? And it is great in my hand. I got little teeny hands. It's got a great feel in my hand. I've got plenty of weight behind it to send a horse one way or the other. It's the perfect length that if somebody does start to pull away from me, I have enough leverage that I can hang on to it, where like a regular lead rope, somebody pulls away, they get to the end of that other lead rope, a 9-foot lead rope, and they're just gone. You have nothing. But by the same token, with a 25-foot lunge line, they'll get too much leverage on you, and they just pull away and go. So when I hand walk, I only hand walk in this rope right here. This is what I have, because I can send them one way, send them back the other if I need to, correct them. If they want to screw around and turn into a kite, I've got enough room to kind of step away from them to not get hurt, and then put them to work within the vicinity of myself. And that being said, I'm going to be posting a video here of the basic handle that I need to have on a colt before I start hand walking it, okay? And it'll go up after this video, so make sure you check that out. And if you haven't heard the story about how this happened to my face, I'll share the link in the description box so you can go back and take a look at, how this happened. It was not a fun experience, but anyway, that's some of the equipment that I use, and a little bit of why I use it and how I use it in the application. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comment section. Reach out. I can leave Keitha's information if you're interested in ordering anything like this. She's just made stuff for me for the last 14 years, and everybody that I've ever sent her way has not been disappointed in her equipment. It lasts forever, and it works really, really effectively in, all of my horse handling needs. So, hope that helps you guys out, and hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.